Hey everybody, Alberto here with another episode of Opti TV. Today's guest is Taylor Canfield, flight controller for SailGP USA and match racing world champion. Did you know that Taylor started off sailing much like many kids nowadays in the Opti class? But now he's a very accomplished professional sailor. Let's see what he has to say about fast boats, slow boats, life as a pro, and a few tips for those Opti sailors out there. I'm joined by my co-host Omari Scott, and before we get into this Caribbean conversation, make sure to smash that like button and give us a follow. It helps support the Opti TV project tremendously. Intro. This is a first for Opti TV. We've got Taylor Canfield, the flight controller for SailGP USA, and Coach Omari Scott, one of our top contributors at Opti TV. And this is a Caribbean conversation about pro racing and Taylor Canfield. So, guys, how you doing today?
Yeah, doing well. Thanks for having me. Really excited, and hope I can share some tips and tactics and kind of what I live my life by.
Yeah, me, same here. Just, we spoke recently, Alberta, we talk every day. So, you know what my routine is looking like, pretty much at home, exercise, some FIFA, that's life for me.
It's always good.
Yeah, you know it. You got to take your mind off of work sometimes. So for me, just been chilling out, same old thing. Looking forward to getting back to the sailing, getting on the water. But apart from that, just sitting and waiting.
I think we're all in the same kind of boat, so to speak. But I think that the reason why I asked you on Taylor to Opti TV to chat with us for a little while is I think that you have probably one of the most unique experiences post Opti. You came up through the Opti game in the Virgin Islands, and now you're a professional sailor, and not only a professional sailor, but you're probably one of the most well-known professional sailors out there right now. So everyone has to start somewhere. Taylor, what was that for you?
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, I grew up in the U.S. Virgin Islands. I sailed against Omari a bunch growing up and all through college. And yeah, to be honest, it was an amazing place to sail. I'm super lucky to be able to grow up down there and just be able to sail year round. And for me, it was all about having fun initially. Yeah, I was into racing pretty early at a young age, but we would just do a lot of exploring, and we made it a lot of fun. And we didn't always have a coach, but we'd go out and we'd sail to an island and tie our boat up to a rock and go explore the island and then sail home. And sometimes we'd make our parents a little bit mad, get back after dark, but that was part of the adventure.
Well, that does sound adventurous, a little, probably a little different than most Opti kids nowadays, but I'm sure there's some that are going to identify with that.
Yeah. In the Caribbean, man. In Caribbean, Alberta, man, we live pretty free out there, man. Our parents are really strict, but when you live in the Caribbean, you live in an island, you can only go so far, So it's not like if they send out a search party for you, they'll probably find you, So we were pretty free. And the way we kind of grew up, as Taylor just mentioned, like we learned really quickly how to become independent, and that's just kind of where we live. But, our parents are very strict about how things should go. So if we toe the line, we'll get in trouble. But at the end of the day, we were really like pretty much free to just be independent and just, make things happen,
Does that sound about right, Taylor?
Spot on, and always pushing the limits, for always trying to just get that, sail that little extra distance and get back that little bit extra after dark. And
but I mean, probably the amount of sailing that you guys did in the just in that for funsies, really helped the development in your sailing career, because you got pretty good in Optis, kind of quick, right?
Yeah, it developed like relatively quickly for me, and I did a lot of racing initially down in the islands, but then slowly started to travel to the U.S. and You know, did the Opti circuit, did one Opti Worlds, you know, a bunch of Opti Nationals, a bunch of Opti North Americans, and but yeah, you know, I just had a small group of buddies down in the islands. Two of my really good buddies who I grew up sailing with, Cy Thompson and Thomas Barrows. You know, I've been sailing against them my whole life as well, and you know, we just would go out and push each other. And you know, I think the big thing was that we just try to spend as much time on the water as possible. And you know, even though it wasn't super regimented, you know, we were just out there and learning all the time and just getting a better feel. So, but yeah, we did travel. We ended up traveling a lot in the end, and you know, fortunately, our parents made that available for us, and yeah, it was a lot of fun, and we got to, you know, see the world and make a lot of new friends. And yeah, I really enjoyed my Opti days, and yeah, put up some good results here and there. But again, I think it was a lot of it was about friendship and just traveling and yeah, having a good time.
You know, I think that's one of the most, I think one of the most important things in the Opti class is how it develops a sort of, you know, a circuit, you know, a lifetime racing circuit for you, because like you guys said, you know, you guys race against each other in Optis, but you're still, you know, friendly with each other and know each other many years after, you know, down the road. But let me ask you, you know, what after that kind of Opti career and, you know, you made the switch into bigger and faster boats, you know, did you have a kind of a goal? Did you have a kind of a path that you already wanted to set out on?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it was, you know, ever since I was a little kid, I kind of looked up to Peter Holmberg, who grew up in the U.S. Virgin Islands in St. Thomas. And, you know, I watched him just kind of excel through the match racing scene and go on to the America's Cup. Oh, you know, that being said, he's also Olympic silver medalist in the Fin. But, you know, I always looked up to him, and I saw him go and win the World Match Racing Tour. And, you know, ever since I went to the Junior Gold Cup in Bermuda, you know, sailing alongside all the pros at the Gold Cup, to me, that was like game changer. I saw them match racing in Bermuda Harbor, and that was like, this is me. But yeah, you know, there was a lot of steps along the way. I went into the Club 420 and did that for a while, and a little bit of I-420 sailing, small little bit of laser sailing. I didn't really like hiking though, so tried to avoid that as much as possible. And you know, we did the high school sailing team. We started our own high school team in St. Thomas at Antilles School, and that's still going strong, which is great to see.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
And then went on to sail at Boston College and won some national championships there, which was awesome, and had a great time again.
What was college sailing like for you? Did you enjoy the experience?
Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun. Again, that was just, I'd say that was one of the more fun times of my sailing career. You know, you get to travel during school and you know, go see different colleges and see all your friends. And you know, it was busy, but you know, competing every weekend. And yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. And you know, I saw myself as continuing on to be a pro sailor. So you know, I took it quite seriously and worked hard all the time.
Yeah, you know, it's so funny though, like it's good to hear about, you know, you and the match racing thing, because for me, there was a time that was kind of missing in your sailing for me. I remember you when we were in Optis and things like that. And then you kind of went missing, you went off to college, and then, you know, all of a sudden, match racing. And I'm like, Taylor. I'm like, I know this guy, you know? And, you know, you just, as you said, you didn't do much in the 420s and things like that. You did college, which obviously your team was really good and you contributed to that as well. But it was just kind of all of a sudden there was a calm, and then boom, you know, took off in the whole match racing. Like, what made you decide to I mean, I guess you said just a little bit about who kind of inspired you in that, but you know, what about you drew you to that, and just kind of you jumped right into it and was really good at it right away?
Yeah, I think probably the big push for match racing for me is we did a lot of team racing growing up, and I absolutely loved the team racing. That was, you know, something I really enjoyed doing. To me, that was so much
You hear
fun.
that, kids?
Yeah, I think it's, you know, the best way to get really good at a bunch of different aspects of sailing, you know, working on boat handling, working on, you know, all your boat speed, but also working on, you know, figuring out how to protect the race course and cover different sides of the race course while, you know, also trying to cover boats. So,
And
you
the
know,
rule.
that's kind of, yeah, in the rules for sure. And that's kind of what pushed me into the match racing game. And I probably started, I can't even think really, but my first match race, I was probably 16 or 17 years old. And yeah, because of all the team racing I did, it felt like it came quite naturally. And, you know, I just sailed again. I started sailing with a bunch of my buddies. I sailed initially some guys I grew up with, like Nate Rosenberg, who crewed for me in the Club 420 for a while, and Cy Thompson. And, you know, we'd skip every time we have like an off weekend in college sailing, we'd, you know, try to jet out and go do a match race event. And
So now I have
and
a
it's so,
quick question for you on that though. Like for someone, was that difficult to get into? Because I was just the other day saying, you know, I need to sail more, and like at a higher level, like, is it easy to just put a team together like that? And just, do they have a lot of match racing events in the US that you can just kind of show up with a team, or what's that process like?
yeah, that's an awesome question. Probably the first way that I got involved is I started going to the US Match Racing Championship qualifiers. And you know, you can actually sign up for the match racing newsletter on the US Sailing website as well.
Okay.
And Dave Perry is a huge advocate for getting youth into match racing. So now there's a bunch of youth match race events around the country. But yeah, we'd sign up and we'd be like the only ones under, you know, 30, 40 years old there.
Yeah, I was gonna
And
say like 16, 17 sounds. I would have said that was pretty young, but apparently not anymore.
yeah, I mean, again, there's all these great opportunities, and you know, you just need a few buddies that you want to go sailing with. And to be honest, it's a really affordable way to get out and go sailing. You know, you don't need to own a boat. You show up to these events. You know, you pay a small entry fee of a couple $100, and they give you a boat for the week. You know,
It's so
and
funny because I was talking to a couple of my coach buddies, and you know, we were talking about getting back into sailing. I said, man, if I'm thinking about this match racing thing correctly, it's just a way that we don't need a boat. You pay an entrance fee, you bring a group of people, and you can do it. So I was looking at it the same way you just spoke about it, but I wasn't sure whether or not that's the way it actually works. So it just seems like it's not that hard to get into, and it's, as you said, affordable. Just because, you know, if you're going to sail Colgates or whatever, you don't have to have your own boat. You pay that entrance fee, and the boat's there, and you know, just bring a team in, and you're good to go.
yeah, absolutely. As long as you don't hit any other boats, it stays
That's
relatively cheap.
pretty important.
And I learned that one the hard way for sure. So don't go hitting other boats. It's just not worth it.
But you know, eventually you kind of you got into the match racing circuit, you know, pretty young, developed some experience, and eventually you made a decision, or maybe it just happened that, you know, you went pro. So, you know, how did that transition come about for you?
Yeah, so I think the kind of the stepping stone for me was right after college. I went and I got a job at the Chicago Match Race Center in Chicago and was a sailing director for them. And you know, I basically have chosen at that point that I wanted to continue my path in match racing. So, you know, this was a dream job for me. I got to, you know, coach it. I got to sail. I got to umpire it. I saw you know, the sport from every angle, which was so cool. And yeah, it was just a, you know, awesome opportunity to go, you know, continue to grow my sailing experience, and again, just be around sailing all the time. And Chicago Match Race Center was great because, you know, it gave me some flexibility to go travel on the weekends. You know, I also learned the ins and outs of hosting match race events while at the center, because we'd host, you know, 8 or 9 events a year. And, you know, I'd work at some of those events, sail at some of those events. So, you know, I really just put like everything into match racing at that point. And yeah, it's, you know, it obviously paid off, and there's a lot of hard work behind it, but you know, I can't thank all my crew members that I've gone through over the years. I've definitely gone through a lot of crew just from, you know, availability purposes of people, and just kind of figuring out how the team works together. So yeah.
So, you know, a lot of kids and, you know, people in the trainer classes aren't familiar with kind of like how, you know, professional teams or professional programs are created and mounted. So, you know, can you explain a little bit about, you know, the logistics of mounting a campaign and what exactly, you know, you have to do in order to attend these events and compete in the circuit?
Yeah, absolutely. So the big thing for me is like, first thing is probably trying to find a team. And again, I sailed with a bunch of buddies, initially, and well, everyone I've sailed with are now my, really close, good friends. But
Yeah.
initially, it was a bunch of guys like my age that would go out and we'd compete, and I'd say, hey, we're going to show up to this event. Everyone's going to pay for their own prize money. Luckily, some of the housing was covered, and but for the most part, yeah, I would try to cover the housing if it wasn't provided, and pay the entry fee. And yeah, so for the small amount of money that it ended up being, like, you just got to get some guys that are willing to commit some time and willing to put in a good effort with you. And it was a lot of fun. You get to travel with your friends, and even if just for the weekend, you're seeing a new place and having a good time. But yeah, that's kind of how it all started for us. And then started to get, we started to climb the ladder. You start in, grade 4, grade 3 match races, which you can, get invites to pretty often. And then as you start to climb the ranking, you start to just turn some heads, and you can put in applications for, grade 2, grade 1 match races. And
That's
at those events,
the pro level is grade 1 and grade 2.
yeah, mostly grade 1 for the very pro level, but grade 2 is like a really good stepping stone and target to start to getting to the higher level match racing, because a lot of the pro guys do grade 2 events for training purposes, which is what we did a lot of the time. And yeah, and that's when you start getting into the prize money events. So then we start going to these grade 2 events, and despite everyone still having to pay for their plane tickets, we'd split the prize money at the end of the event, and everyone would sometimes walk away with a little bit of cash in their pocket, which was nice. So
Yeah, I can imagine.
What was it like? I know, doing the match racing circuit or tour, a lot of the times, you're on, as I said, Colgates, these keel boats that are very easy to maneuver, things like that. It makes it fun. What was it like to switch? Because now, they're doing foiling cats and stuff like that, and they're doing match racing with those things. Like, that must have been a big change. Like, did you learn how to foil before you went and did that? Was that like something you had to do? Or like, I would be moving from a slow boat to a really, really fast boat can be very terrifying. And if you're like maneuvering, close maneuvers is what kind of match racing is. How do you go to that? Like, how did that transition work out for you?
yeah, well, first thing said, I definitely missed the slower boat match racing. It was really cool how the World Match Racing Tour was set up, and being able to compete in a different boat at every venue. And I think that kind of evened the playing field for a lot of different teams. Some teams were better in smaller boats, and a little bit more sporty, and some teams were better in bigger boats. So I think it was a really a test to your ability as a sailor to hop into different boats and see how you can compete against the other guys in all these different types of boats. So I enjoyed that a lot. But as you said, the World Tour was then transitioned into the M32 catamaran, and we just happened to decide to go on the M32 circuit in Scandinavia, the fleet racing circuit, before the M32's transition to the World Match Racing Tour.
Mm-hmm.
So we got some fleet racing experience in the boat prior to doing the match racing, which is really helpful. So as you mentioned, we didn't hop straight into the fast boat and into the match racing at the same time. We kind of learned to sail the boats and develop those skills in the fleet racing. And then once the World Tour started with the M32s, it was a nice, easy transition. We'd done all the match racing, we'd done the fast boat sailing, and it was an easy transition to kind of combine the two for us.
What would you say your favorite boat to just sail, match racing aside for a second, to sail them, the catamarans or the slower boats?
Man, I would have to say the M32s are awesome boats. They're super quick, they're super simple, they're really, really physical. There's a lot of tactics involved. I really enjoy the M32 class at the moment. The classes have been on the up ever since the beginning, and I think the M32s are probably up there for me. But man, I've sailed a lot of boats, so that's a tough one.
Yeah, Interesting question for you. You kind of just touched on it a little bit. Some people, including myself, uh, prefer more of the slower boats. I mean, I like to go fast, so I would definitely go on an M32 and go for a ride and spin around and have fun with it. Um, but I prefer the slower boats because I think, and I may be wrong, you can correct me because you've done more on both sides. I just think that the slower boats are more tactical, I guess, because it's easier to kind of judge speed because it's more one design, things like that. You just said tactics in the M32s. I mean, what do you think in terms of tactics? Is the M32s more about passing lanes and speed, or is there just a whole great deal of tactics to play in that stuff in that boat?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. The slower boats are 100% more tactical, and I enjoy it. You know, I sail a lot of J70s and Etchels, and you know, went in one of the Etchels worlds with 96 boats.
Right.
So you know, I love sailing the slower boats and the big fleets, and you know, I still do that today. And I enjoy tactics. I do tactics on most of the programs I sail on, and I enjoy that a lot. But yeah, I guess as the boats get faster and faster, it definitely becomes a little bit less tactical. I like to think of it more as in the faster boats, you start to look for pressure and changing your modes, and trying to figure out, you know, how that's going to help you tactically rather than, oh, you know, I'm going to attack on this 3-degree shift in a slower boat because it's going to
Right.
be, you know, pay big dividends for me. So I think it's just almost like a different aspect to the tactics. But you know, the M32s, now that we've gotten a better grip on how to sail them well, they're, you know, you're able to tack and jibe the boats quite efficiently. So you know, you can tack on the big shifts, and you know, if there's a big puff on one side of the course, like, you know, you can tack and make it affordable to go to that puff. So um, yeah, but for sure, the slow boats are more tactical. I will agree with that.
I love that. I love the tactical part. I know I did an interview with Alberto as well, and I told him like what made me move from just being fun in an Opti when I first started to when I competed was the fact that when you win a race or you do really well, you know, you're sailing against 100 sailors and you won the race, you're just like, man, I just outsmarted 99 sailors. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that was the thing that got me going. You know, it's like, oh, there's a cloud, I'm going there, or whatever the current. And that's my big thing. That's what I love about sailing. The more tactical it can be, where you're seeing things that maybe your competition is not seeing. It's great. You know, speed is awesome too, but for me, I live for tactics and strategic. The planning part of it is what gets me really pumped.
yeah.
Well, for me at
I like
least,
that.
I think that you know, I don't know if you agree, Taylor, but it's kind of sailing in another dimension. You know, it's just like shifting, I guess, gears a little bit, because you know, I've seen you race, you know, the M32 circuit in whenever it comes around to Miami, and you know, it's really interesting to see the cats out there because you know it's a little bit of both, but like you said, it's you know, tactical and fast. But like you said, it's just you start to look at different things, you start to kind of focus on different things on the race course, you know. So let me ask you, because it brings up a question for me, you know, for you in your experience, like you've gone from match racing, the slower boats, the faster boats, and now, you know, mounting a campaign for the America's Cup, and at the same time sailing on, you know, the SailGP foiling boats. And do you think that skills from either one of those groups or boats campaigns, you know, play into each other? Can you use, you know, tactics from fast boats on slow boats and vice versa?
Yeah, again, they're definitely a different, you know, it's a different breed, but you know, the way I look at it is just like the more time you're spending on the water, the better. You know, like there are definitely things that transfer over, but they are very different games, you know. You know, like going and racing the M32s, or my mind is like completely different than it would be when I'm sailing the
Really?
J70, you know, in a bigger fleet. Um, you know, just as far as risk goes and things like that, it's a totally different game. So, but yeah, there are definitely things, you know, that you're always in the back of your head, like, okay, you know, where's the big part of the fleet? You know, where's the group? should we protect the group, or do we trust, what we're sailing towards on, the left side of the course? So, from that side of it, there's still a lot of stuff that kind of overlaps, like, are we going to, cover the group and let the one boat go to the left, or, are we going to go to the left with the one boat? So, there's a lot of stuff that definitely overlaps between the two.
Interesting. Out of curiosity, how did you get even involved with SailGP?
Yeah, to be honest, I've been buddies with Rome Kirby, the CEO and helms into the team for quite a while. We sailed Optis against each other and 420s against each other, and did a small bit of college sailing against each other as well. So we've just kind of always been on each other's radar. And when I heard that the US team was gonna be on the SailGP circuit, I was like, oh, okay, like how do I get involved? And then I heard Rome was running it, and I picked up the phone and gave him a call. And
wow,
as simple as that. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people are often a little bit afraid to do, is like, it's something that they want to do, like reach out and go get it. Don't be afraid to put your name in the pot. Worst thing that someone's going to do is say no. And I've been told no a lot in my career, but the times that I've reached out and been given an opportunity, I'm like, oh wow, that was awesome. I'm really happy that I did make the effort. And so we had a tryout up in Newport, Rhode Island. We sailed on the AC-45Fs, which are the old, I guess, America's Cup World Series boats.
Yeah.
So smaller. They had a wing. They had fully foiling capability, and we went and did like 2 weeks up in Newport, Rhode Island, and there was a big group and transitioned through it all, and it was a lot of fitness testing, and which I wasn't super into initially, but definitely got pushed by a lot of the guys that were trying out, and pushed myself really hard. And I think a few weeks later, got a call back from Robe and saying, hey, we want you on the team, and basically straight into going down to New Zealand to test out the new boat.
That's crazy. I know, like for you, I mean, being in these, doing these different boats from J70s, to the match racing tours and things like that. I mean, to be honest, like you're now in Miami, so I know I see you around sometimes, but how often do you really have to travel, man? Like, are you ever, around?
Yeah,
that's a good question.
It's pretty busy, to be honest. I think last season I flew like 140,000 miles.
Wow.
So yeah, that's a lot of time on an airplane for sure. But it's fun. I enjoy traveling, luckily, and I sleep well on planes, which is a bonus. I'm lucky to have a great fiance who does a very similar thing to me, and she travels a lot for her Olympic campaign. It's pretty grueling. You spend a lot of time on an airplane, and luckily I sleep well on the plane, so that's a bonus. But it's definitely a lot of time on the road, but at the same time it's really rewarding, and you get to see a lot of cool places and meet a lot of new people. So for me, that makes it worth it.
With all of this travel, sailing all these different kinds of boats, professionally, and mounting all these campaigns, do you still sail for fun?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I see a lot of sailing I do as fun, even when, I'm doing it as my job as well. It's definitely my passion. And every time I'm on the water, I'm always trying to remember to have a good time. I'm probably one of the more competitive people you'll meet, but I try to keep that in the back of my head, be like, hey, how lucky are we to be out on the water right now sailing? And but to be honest, I try to get out when I'm back here in Miami, just go for a little rip on my Moth, and I really enjoy that, or come down to Coconut Grove Sailing Club and sail some Flying Scots. And so
you got to do that more. We got to get out there.
I know. I think they're starting back up soon, which I'm excited about. So
yeah, I think this upcoming week it'll resume. But actually, that brings up the next, the big elephant in the room, the current situation with the world at sailing. There's a lot of people stuck at home, a lot of, kids wishing that they could be sailing, a lot of people wishing they could be sailing, a lot of athletes and coaches that are, not really active right now. So now that things are starting to reopen, again, around the world slowly, bit by bit, what are the next few months of training going to look like for you, with regattas out of the picture for a little while?
Yeah, it's definitely a big change, from, like I said, traveling as much as I do every year to, being at home for the last 2 months has been a bit of an eye opener for me, and saying like, wow, what can I be doing to kind of fill this void in my life? And big thing for me is I've really taken on to focusing on my physical fitness, and I've been cycling a lot, which has been really fun. And I kind of see that as like almost filling in for some of the sailing that I'm missing out on. I go out with a bunch of buddies. And it's a good time, but at the same time, we're pushing hard all the time, which is really cool. And that's kind of filled the void a little bit. But yeah, we're doing a lot of garage workouts. Not being able to go to the gym, so we've gotten creative with the limited gym equipment that we have. And yeah, it's unfortunate that we can't be on the water. Maybe a little virtual racing as well.
Yeah, virtual regatta, right?
Virtual regatta, you should get on it, because again, it's just a cool way to virtually go sail against your friends and have a good time doing it. So
yeah,
of
it must
course.
not be for you, because I did the same thing. I went out recently and went to buy a bike, and to be honest, man, they were like sold out almost everywhere. Everyone was thinking the same thing. I had to go to multiple stores. Alberto sent me a link to one to order one, but I just wanted to go to a store and pick up a bike. I didn't want to just do this whole ordering thing. And I was lucky enough to find a place that they just keep ordering over and over again. So they had some bikes in stock, but it took me a few stores to find a bike. But for you, in terms of just working out, I think everyone's thinking about working out. I've been cycling a lot since I bought that bike. But for you, because you have Steph, there, you must have that motivation to work out, because I'm pretty sure she's in the same state of mind. Like, okay, what can I do? Workout. So you guys probably just kind of motivate each other. Whereas if you're just by yourself, it's like, okay, I'm going to do it today. But then you decide, I won't tomorrow. You have someone there to hold you kind of accountable. You guys hold each other accountable. So that's kind of good too. I think that makes it a lot easier for you guys to get it going in terms of working out. So that's kind of awesome.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. We definitely push each other, pick each other up when one's not feeling, super motivated. And, it's just constant, like, one of us lagging in our workouts, or on the bike, we're like, come on, push hard, push for another minute, like, so, yeah. And, she's an incredible athlete. I've learned a ton from her, and, she's pushed me to be a much better athlete in person. So, yeah, as I mentioned, she's going to the Olympics, so she's got to stay focused and super fit.
Right.
Definitely. And, although the Olympics have been postponed to next year, the sailing is going to make a return, and there's still a lot of sailing to be done. But, out of curiosity, in this time where, we're worrying so much about the situation and social distancing, are there any plans for offshore sailing? Are you going to get into the distance races?
Oh, I'm not sure, to be honest. I've done a few offshore events, and actually, I was super lucky. I did a training leg with Charlie Enright and Mark Towell and the Vestas 11th Hour guys.
Nice.
So I did a transatlantic with them on the Volvo 65, and that was an unbelievable experience.
Nice.
We had some great weather. We sailed downwind for a majority of the time, and absolutely just smashed the Atlantic crossing, which is super cool. But yeah, like you said, I got so much going on right now, so I'd love to get more into the offshore racing, but yeah, at the moment, quite busy. So I'm going to probably just, keep pushing on the goals that I have. And, if an opportunity comes up in the near future, I'm not going to say no, that's for sure.
What was the top speed on that crossing?
Oh man, we were probably, I don't know exactly, but I definitely saw like 34, 35 on the Speedo a few times.
Wow.
And, sitting above 28, 29 knots for extended period of time. So it's pretty cool. It's, you're just out in the elements, and everyone's pushing hard, and the boat is just like so alive and on edge. It was an unbelievable experience.
You know, I don't think that we could bring any kind of offshore sailing into the Opti world, but you know, bringing it back to Optis for a little bit. Do you think that match racing can be included in, you know, Opti programs, or some kind of facet of match racing can be included in those curriculums?
Yeah, I think there's a possibility. One thing I've noticed in match racing, if the boats are too maneuverable, it makes it a little bit difficult. Um, but yeah, you know, I think there's definitely opportunities to involve it into programs to, you know, help with different like boat handling aspects of the game, or you know how to cover someone properly, or how to slow your boat down if needed for a certain situation. You know, so I think there's definitely aspects, but you know, I think the team racing in the smaller boats and the dinghies is the way to go, to be honest.
Well, that's interesting to me because you know, I myself have not match raced yet, so to hear that maybe it wouldn't quite work out because the boats are too maneuverable is good. So maybe, you know, programs need to be focusing more on team racing, especially during this time. You know, that can be done a lot more locally in this situation. And kind of digging back into Optis here for a second, what, if anything, has stayed with you from your Opti days? What do you still, you know, employ to this day that you learned back then?
Probably the first thing that comes to mind is just like, you know, I was lucky. My parents bought me an Opti down in the islands. I had like Opti, I think it was 6,000 or 6829, I think was my Opti number for all you young sailors now. It was a pretty old boat, but back then it was quite new. And you know, for me, like getting this boat, I was like, oh, wow, this is incredible. Like this is, you know, my boat. I'm going to take care of this thing as best I can. And for me, that was the biggest thing, is, you know, like always making sure my boat was like perfectly prepared, you know, perfectly taken care of, you know, like, you know, we pushed off the beach all the time, and, you know, I doubt there was a grain of salt left in my boat at the end of the day. So, um, yeah, you know, that was a big thing for me, is like always really looking after my equipment, and taking the best care of it that I could.
That's great advice. I think, you know, Omari, do you think you think some kids should be paying better attention to their boats?
100%, man. 100%. That's something that I believe in a lot too. We try to push it into programs, but programs are so big, and it's just so easy now because the boats are so available. So, you know, sailors have 2 and 3 boats, but back in the Caribbean, as Taylor said, you either somehow get your own from your parents, or the club assigns you a boat, like a club boat, that's your boat, and you have that boat. You are taking care of that thing. That thing gets washed more times than you probably shower yourself. So
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
you take care of that thing as much as you can, and I completely agree with him with that, because I was kind of the same way, where I think I didn't end up having my own Opti until later in my Opti sailing career, but I had this boat that the club gave to me that, I'm telling you, anyone touched that boat, we were going to have problems, you know? So we were very protective, and just really, we took very, very good care of our equipment. I think that's something that needs to go for everyone now, whether it's sailboats or something else. You got to take care of your equipment.
Yeah, one other thing too that I think, I agree with Omari. Like I started off with a club boat that they lent to me, and you know, I always tried to sail that same boat, and just take really good care of it. But another big thing that I found myself doing in Optis, like from the very beginning, was, you know, if there was ever a boat out there that was going faster than me, you know, I'd try to figure out, why are they going faster. You know, I'd look at their setup, and, you know, trying to say, oh, you know, what's different about what they're doing? You know, what are they doing with their body? What are they doing with the main sheet? You know, like how much are they moving the tiller? So I was always looking for, you know, reasons that someone were going better than me, and if I couldn't figure it out by just, you know, looking at their setup, I'd go ask them. You know, and again, if you don't ask, you'll never get an answer. So,
I think that's
and
the
if
underlying theme of this chat is, you know, if you want it, you got to go for it, right?
absolutely, always. And yeah, that was a big thing for me in my kind of sailing career throughout, was, you know, just always trying to figure out, you know, what is this person doing to go better. Um, so
It's
that's
so
just
funny because
something
I
to think
think
about.
that's very unique. It's so funny you say that. I think that's very unique because I think a lot of kids nowadays are kind of like too shy, or they're not comfortable with doing it. And we push that all the time. It's like, hey man, if this guy is winning, he must obviously be doing something different. Find out, like, as you said, part of it is just friendship. You can go up to this guy and say, hey, I saw that you were doing this very actively. Why do you do that? Does that help? And that's some way to just develop friendship. You meet someone by just going up and asking them, hey, I see you doing this, how does that help? And that's the way you should go. That's how you learn. That's how you get better at whatever you do. Like, you see, there's times that there's going to be people that are better than you or at certain things. And, if you want to be if you want to be really good, sometimes you have to go ask them. You got to ask and try to figure out, what can I do to be better? And I think that's a very good message to at least the youth sailing community, because I see it where not a lot of that is happening now, where back in the day did a lot. A lot of that is happening now. And I just think that a lot of, the kids are shy or they're a little embarrassed. So that's just a good point, I think, for the youth sailing community, because I think I would love to see a lot more of that happening myself.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think as the coaches can push this a little bit too. One thing I really enjoyed when I was sailing in college is our coach would, we'd have a race day every Wednesday, and the top 3 teams from that race day, both the crew and the skipper, would have to write an email to the rest of the team and explain kind of what their thought process was for the day, and what their boat setup was, and so the coaches can really push this. And I think it's also a great tool for getting just the kids to be able to explain themselves and put it on paper. A lot of it is natural for some people, but makes you think about it. What was I doing out there? And it makes you think about the process of it, which is a really good way to learn as well.
I think it must be a Caribbean thing, because I guess we both believe in that, and there's a lot of people who do too. But I do know one of the things I kind of implement in my Opti team is that my sailors have to write debriefs of every day of practice, their own debriefs, and their debriefs include things that they were doing. It talks about the sea state, the conditions, but also they get to say what things they thought they were doing well, or, hey, I saw Taylor doing this and he was really fast. Like, they talk about each other and give each other props, but also it's just a way for kids to remember the things that they need to work on. But, so I think that's something that really helps, which is why I kind of implemented with my program. And not only that, but, week 1 of them doing that, you get one-liners. You're like, oh my God, seriously? And by week 6 or 7 or 8, man, you got full paragraphs of good stuff in there. And I think that's what it is. It's all about the development of these sailors or these athletes, right? And when you see stuff like that go from one sentence to almost a whole sheet, you're like, there's the development that you're looking for. So I do think that point that you brought up is very important, because I actually really push that a lot too when it comes to youth sailing.
This brings something to mind, because I think sailors as athletes, and also just, I guess, the nature of sailing, are always looking to constantly push themselves and their boat, So in the question of development, what's next for Taylor Canfield? What are you pushing yourself towards?
Yeah, so I'm always looking for the next project. As of right now, I have a few programs that I'm focusing on. One is M32 team with Team Convexity. So we have another world championship coming up. We won the last world championship in when was it, in August in Italy, Lake Garda. And we're making another push for it to try to defend that title. Luckily, the next worlds are here in kind of hometown Miami, which will be really cool. Sometime in November, fingers crossed. So that's one big program I'm working on, and then SailGP USA is another big project for me. Again, super lucky to have that opportunity, and despite the season being canceled, there's still a lot of homework being done about how to better our teamwork, our communication, our boat handling. We have so much data to go through, so we spend a lot of time and we're on a lot of calls with the whole team. Just trying to figure out how to get better for when we do get back in the boats. And then finally, yeah, still working on the whole America's Cup project. So Stars and Stripes is still alive, and we're still trying to get things moving. Obviously a bit behind the rest of the field, but yeah, you know, I've been the underdog before, and you know, we're going to push hard till the end and try to get this thing going.
Where can people donate to the Stars and Stripes project? Stand
by. We'll have more updates soon for the general public on our progress, and yeah, we really appreciate anyone that supported us already, and yeah, hopefully we'll have some easier ways to you know not only donate to, but you know, to get some swag and support us for, you know, ideally when we're in New Zealand end of the year.
Awesome, man. Well, I think we're our time is up, and from my part, I want to say thanks for coming on and chatting a little bit. I think your perspective can bring a lot and maybe inspire some kid to follow your steps, or, you know, make their own path in pro sailing.
Yeah,
thanks again, Taylor.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, if you have any questions, you know, I'm on all the social media channels, so you know, just shoot me an email if you got a sailing question or a career question, or you know, anything at all. I'm happy to answer, and I love giving back to, you know, people that are, you know, looking to kind of make this their career and their jobs moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Nice to have you on, man. Definitely, if you're around this summer, you know, we'll try and get you together to speak to some of the kids or do some work with them. And it's always good to see you. Hopefully we'll run into each other again once we're able to move around and catch up and talk about some more stuff, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. No, looking forward to it. And hopefully I'll make it down to both your programs down here in Miami to chat with the kids and hang out, at least go for a little sail. It'll be a lot of fun.
So what do you guys think? I think that was a really cool conversation with one of the most recognizable pro sailors out there at the moment. And we really want to thank Taylor for coming on and chatting with me and Omari for a little while about his experiences post-Opti and into the pro sailing world. Next time you think about getting into some fleet or team racing, think about what he said about what team racing brings to the overall picture and what it can teach you in your sailing. Don't forget, we've got more episodes of Opti TV Presents coming up. Don't miss it. This has been Alberto for Opti TV.